I was really excited about this movie, and then the title screen came up. Captain Marvel? I thought this was Captain Planet. Oh no. There's such a media circus surrounding this film that it's going to be hard to talk about it without addressing that in some way. Some people are saying Brie Larson hates men or something, and others are saying if you don't like this film, you hate women for some reason. It's very much like what happened with Ghostbusters 2016. And all this rubbish makes it hard for people like me who just want to talk about the qualities of the film, or the lack of them. So to anyone who complains I don't like this movie because it has a woman in the central role, all I can say is, you're wrong. And you're an idiot. I've got plenty of positive reviews on this channel where the main characters are female. All I want to do is talk about the film. So Captain Marvel is the latest Marvel movie which takes place in the 90s and follows Carol Danvers as she hunts down these shape-shifting aliens called Skrulls. With this movie taking place in the 90s, chronologically it's the first Marvel film. It's basically a prequel, and as such it suffers from prequelitis. It contradicts a number of the other Marvel films and causes a fair amount of plot holes. And it has that problem where they want to over-explain everything and give you the origin to things that ends up making them weaker. It reminded me of that recent Pirates of the Caribbean film where they gave you the origin of Jack Sparrow's hat. We find out what happened to Nick Fury's eye, which completely undercuts the weight of all his lines about it in the other films.
Soldiers trust each other. That's what makes it an army. Not a bunch of guys running around shooting guns.
Last time I trusted someone, I lost an eye.
That line is not only meaningless now, but it makes me laugh at him because of what actually happened and how dumb it was. And we learn why Fury came up with the title Avengers. I mean, why is that important? It reminded me of the Star Wars Solo movie where they find out the origins of his name. I suppose we also learn how the Tesseract got to Earth, which isn't important at all. I mean, if it was important, don't you think they would have addressed it in the previous 20 movies that have been going on for 10 years? Or they would have just made this film first. By far my favourite thing about the movie was Samuel L. Jackson. He's been in other MCU movies before, but in this he's pushed to the forefront and he's a lot of fun. It works as an origin story for Nick Fury. What made that character good in other films was that he was so mysterious, but they demystify him and show him as young and naive. I really did enjoy Samuel L. Jackson's character, but it does undermine how he is presented in other Marvel movies, particularly how he lost his eye. On the other hand, I can see a lot of people not having a problem with this. He was easily the highlight of the film. They used the de-aging special effects on Samuel L. Jackson and it looked fantastic. Honestly, I couldn't tell, and it was never a distraction at all. I mean, it does help that he looks very good for a 70-year-old. I did notice that he looked older in some of his movements. There's a part where he's moving at a slow jog down a hallway and his posture looked like an old man who was having lower back trouble. That's not intended to be mean, I just wish the filmmakers had put as much effort into making him move like a young man as they did with making him look like one. I also enjoyed how he played with the cat too. I mean, the cat was CGI for over half its screen time and they telegraphed the jokes so hard it gave me a headache. But it was funny seeing Nick Fury getting all cozy with a cat. Apart from that, the film has no likeable characters at all. The worst of those being the main character. She's so bland, emotionless and overpowered, she never has to struggle for anything. At the start of the film, she's already more powerful than everyone else and ends up even stronger. The only reason she has powers is because she stood too close to an engine when it exploded. She doesn't earn it, she doesn't deserve it, there's no emotional journey to go through, she never has that moment like Captain America where he has to prove his worth before he gets his powers. The best superhero movies clearly demonstrate the characters being heroes. Not being super strong and beating people up, that's not what a hero is. It's saving people. Captain Marvel is just a showcase of her power. She never once faces a problem and uses her intelligence to overcome it. At one point she has her hands stuck in these metal restraints and she keeps blasting them with her energy beam thing, but she can't get them off. But then she just blasts them harder and she's free. There's a locked door her and Nick Fury need to get through. Fury uses some ingenuity to get past the electronic lock. It's the smartest bit in the entire movie. When they reach another locked door, Captain Marvel just smashes her way through it. At the end, something is hurtling towards Earth and she can't push it out of the way, but then she just pushes harder. This might as well have been a Hulk movie for the lack of intelligence that she demonstrates. She's so overpowered even before she gains her full powers, it's impossible to relate to her. She's basically Superman, but she never has that Superman moment. You know, Superman has to learn a hard lesson that despite his power, he can't save everyone. And no, I don't mean this moment from Man of Steel. That film was bad and they should feel bad. Captain Marvel never suffers that painful lesson. She's like Superman before they came up with kryptonite. She is never humiliated, never humbled, and so never goes on any emotional journey at all. Sure, she suffers from amnesia and wants to find out who she is, but when she finally remembers, it doesn't change her in any way. She reminded me a lot of Rey from the recent Star Wars movies, and those who don't like Rey will have exactly the same issues with the Captain Marvel character. Towards the end of the film, she gets a lot of new powers and she suddenly knows how to use them. She doesn't go through the growing pains like is usual for most superhero movies. It's simply, oh, I can fly now, and she's zipping around like she's been doing it all her life and not just learnt she can do it 5 seconds ago. Captain Marvel as a character is underwritten and overpowered. She has no real arc in the entire movie. She's told she is being too emotional and tries to suppress it. She needs to think with her mind and not her heart. Then she later stops trying to suppress her emotions and lets them free, but she doesn't act any more emotional than before. There's no emotional depth or range from Brie Larson's performance. She lives with the Kree on some planet, yet she acts like a normal human Earth woman. So when she crash lands on Earth and they try to do the fish out of water stuff, it doesn't work because she's basically a normal human Earth woman anyway. Brie Larson is so wooden, I wouldn't be surprised if she took acting lessons from Kristen Stewart. She's a charisma vacuum. It's impossible for me to tell if this is a problem with her acting or the writing and the way the directors told her to perform, but she's incredibly bland. At least some of it must be down to her own acting ability. Anytime she smiles, it comes across as fake. A few times she holds her fist up threateningly, like she's going to punch someone, but she has her wrist angled in such a way that her hand is pulled back. Not only does that look very weak, but you'd break your wrist if you hit someone like that, and she's supposed to be a trained soldier. Her character is written inconsistently and it makes her very ill-defined. As a character, she's all over the place. Sometimes she's sarcastic, other times she's hard and emotionless. She makes jokes at times you would think she would be filled with emotion, and even when she's making jokes or being snarky, she has no humour in her face. It's hard to pinpoint her personality, which is an unusual fault for Marvel characters to have. Marvel is really good at defining their characters, and even in the worst MCU movies, they always get that right, but Captain Marvel is a complete blank slate. It doesn't help her line delivery is incredibly flat.
Where were you born?
Huntsville, Alabama, but technically I don't remember that part.
Name of your first pet?
Mr. Snoofers.
Mr. Snoofers.
That's what I said.
I'm going to put a spoiler warning here because I want to talk about elements of the film freely without having to worry about spoiling it for people. The film is very formulaic and predictable, and they telegraph any upcoming plot points so hard you can see them coming from a mile away, so there shouldn't really be anything you can't figure out before seeing the film. But just in case, I want to throw up a spoiler warning. If you want to avoid the spoilers, skip to this time code. So to no one's surprise, Captain Marvel's team turn out to be the bad guys. I mean, if the trailer didn't make that abundantly clear, you've got two of the main villains from Guardians of the Galaxy on the team. Why these two villains from Guardians of the Galaxy are in the movie, I have no idea. They have no role in the film. Honestly, I just think they want to force Captain Marvel to be linked to as many other Marvel movies as possible. So later in the film, Captain Marvel is betrayed by her team and has to fight against them for what she believes is right. But we get no moments with them as a team, no time fleshing them out as individual characters, so it means nothing when she has to fight her team because the team doesn't mean anything to the audience. I can only remember two of these people even speaking with Captain Marvel, and I've no idea who this is. Does he even have any lines? Likewise, Captain Marvel never talks about her team when she's separated from them, and she never needs their skills and has to figure out her own way of getting around a problem. Captain Marvel herself also shows no emotion when she is betrayed by her teammates either, and when she's fighting them to the death, she is cracking jokes and doesn't take it seriously at all. Couple that with the out-of-place pop song playing over the top and it annihilates any tension or drama the scene would have otherwise had. All of the bad guys have light-up weapons that look like toys. One of them even has lights on his knife blades for some reason. I have no idea what they do and the movie never bothers to explain. It reminded me of the Star Wars prequels.
I understood that reference.
I found the Skrulls to be quite underwhelming. When they're introduced, they're just casually talking in English. A universal translator is mentioned later in the film, but it would have made them intimidating if they'd have been talking an alien language the audience can't understand. It would have hidden their motives and made them difficult to relate to, making their actions feel more sinister. So the eventual reveal that they were in fact the good guys would have a lot more weight to it. As it was, when they revealed the Skrulls to be the good guys, I never believed it and kept expecting them to be lying because the switch from bad to good was so casually done. Captain Marvel eats it up in seconds and immediately drops her guard and trusts them. The Skrulls act quite savage and violent, but as soon as the audience is told they're the good guys, they trot out all the little kids and the Skrulls are willing to have a reasonable discussion all of a sudden. And when they start talking, they just come across as humans in green makeup, like an alien from the Star Trek films rather than an alien race from the Marvel Universe. I couldn't get past they were actors wearing prosthetics. The film itself suffers from a number of big problems. The movie starts off running, which is an issue because it doesn't take the time to work on the characters. It doesn't let the audience settle into the world. There's no world building at all, which is an enormous problem because all these different planets and races come off as being too human. Visually they're different, but they all act like regular people. And because the film starts off at such a fast pace, it has to stop abruptly several times to give the audience some painful exposition dialogue. It made me feel disconnected from the opening scenes. The film suffers from a number of bad performances. Samuel Jackson was great and the Skrulls were pretty good too, but the rest range from mediocre to incredibly poor. Lee Pace is a pale imitation of what he was in Guardians of the Galaxy. Gone is that menacing voice and body language. The child actor was really bad, and worst of all was Brie Larson herself.
Oh, I'll be out of your hair as soon as I track down the Skrulls that are infiltrating your planet.
The movie is tonally inconsistent. It's mostly a super serious story about a war between the Kree and the Skrulls. I have no idea why the different factions are fighting each other. The film doesn't go any deeper than the Kree don't like the Skrulls and the Skrulls don't like the Kree. There's absolutely no depth whatsoever. Skeletor has more depth. And while this super serious war is going on, they play 90s pop songs which were so distracting and out of place. The songs were so obvious and you've heard them a million times before. Loads of men tell Captain Marvel she can't do this or that just because she's a woman, so when she gets her powers, they play I'm Just a Girl by No Doubt as this fight scene's going on. Whose fucking idea was that? This isn't a goofy character in a film with a Guardians of the Galaxy style tone. It works in Guardians of the Galaxy because the scenes were built around the songs and the songs themselves were the connective tissue between the audience and Peter Quill. In Captain Marvel, they just throw out pop songs without integrating it into the film at all. You have a serious character in a film about an intergalactic war, and that doesn't mesh with overplayed 90s pop songs. And if you're going to play a song over a fight scene, at least make the fight scene fun to fit the music style. It's a serious, completely bland fight scene, and the music doesn't fit in the slightest. And they give the main character a 9 Inch Nails shirt. Well, she steals it. What a hero. And weirdly, they never have any Nine Inch Nails music in the film, despite them throwing the logo in your face for the majority of the movie. All of the fight scenes were so flat and uninteresting. There's a fight scene that takes place in a train where Captain Marvel is flipping around and punching this alien who is disguised as an old lady. And then two guys grab Captain Marvel from behind and try and stop her from beating up an old woman. And Captain Marvel struggles to get them off of her. They're just two regular guys and she's a superhuman. How is she having a hard time with them? In fact, so much about this train scene was badly shot.
Train's heading for a tunnel up ahead.
Yeah, thanks. I'm sure the audience couldn't have figured that out. And what type of crappy shot is this? A bad one. And then you get this terrible fight choreography. How did this cost over $150 million? The lighting was poor. They attempt to try the colourful Guardians of the Galaxy look for a few of the space scenes, but they have neither the cohesion or the framing to pull it off. It comes off as any old space stuff and wouldn't be out of place in either the Star Wars or Star Trek films. It doesn't have the distinct feel it needs. All the scenes on Earth have this bland lighting. Most Marvel movies have a problem with boring lighting, but they have moved away from that in recent years with Guardians, Infinity War and Thor Ragnarok, but Captain Marvel feels like a regression. They had an action scene where they had lights shining in the camera and I couldn't tell what was going on. People were fighting but I couldn't tell who was who and what exactly was happening, but then I realised I didn't care anyway, so it was fine. It was so irritating how the film tries to force you to like the Captain Marvel character and it has the opposite effect. They try so hard to make you like her. You've heard of Captain America? Well, she was the first captain.
Look at me, sure. I'm the captain now.
I guess we're going to have to rename the original Captain America movie now. Why is this film called Captain Marvel? No one calls her that and she's not the captain of anything. They're forcing her into the centre of events that have been building up over 20 movies and it's not earned or deserved. Captain Marvel is now the most important character in the MCU and it feels incredibly shoehorned in. They put her in a Nine Inch Nails shirt to try and make her trendy. She doesn't even like Nine Inch Nails. She stole the shirt. Nick Fury likes her, so I should probably like her as well. The Avengers got their name from Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel is the first time the SHIELD organisation has been introduced to aliens, not Thor or Loki like we were led to believe in Avengers. She's super powerful and only gets stronger from there. She's in a video store and spots a cardboard cutout of Arnold Schwarzenegger and shoots his head off. Just so you know, she's better than the greatest action hero of all time.
Bullshit.
The film spends a lot of time trying to connect it to the other movies in the MCU. If this had to stand on its own, well, it wouldn't. If this film wasn't part of the MCU, if it was its own film, it'd fail as hard as Valerian did. Say what you like about Black Panther, love it or hate it, it told its own story and didn't get distracted with that cinematic universe baggage. You get a montage of men saying she needs to leave because women shouldn't be here. That quick montage is the only development Captain Marvel gets. And one guy even says the awful line, "You can't be a pilot, it's called a cockpit for a reason." Oh yeah! What kind of human talks like that? It's pathetic. There's a few other jabs at men as well, but there's no scene where someone gets kicked in the balls, which is nice. They do feel the need to continually remind you that the main character is a woman. I have no idea why. If you take Scarlet Witch for example, in the hierarchy of what is important to the audience about this character, the fact she's a woman comes pretty low on that list. She's kind and caring, she wants to help people, she has incredible powers, and somewhere near the bottom is her being a woman. If you then take Captain Marvel, she's a woman first and foremost, and then she has all these powers, and then she's a hero. Being a woman is more important than any other aspect of her personality or her character. Some people won't have a problem with that, of course, but it annoys the hell out of me. Look at all the classic, good, well-written female characters. Being a woman is not something that they have to constantly remind the audience about. And having a female in an action film isn't exactly new or groundbreaking, so I don't know why they make such a big deal out of it. If your only reason for wanting to watch this is as a setup for Avengers Endgame, don't bother. You can happily skip it. Obviously I haven't seen Endgame, but there was nothing that I saw that remotely set up anything in the new Avengers film. I don't even think they properly define Captain Marvel's powers or personality, so you can absolutely skip this and not have to worry about it. In the end, I'd give Captain Marvel a 4 out of 10. Despite all my complaining, the film isn't terrible, but it fails in so many ways that could have easily been done better. The movie is uninteresting, unspecial, but mostly it's completely unnecessary. You know you've got a major problem with your film when your main character is the most boring person in the entire movie. In fact, she's the most bland character in the whole of the MCU. It doesn't help that Brie Larson was suffering from resting bitch face for most of the movie. The entire film was incredibly boring. The only thing that kept me awake was Samuel L. Jackson. I personally think the weakest of the MCU films are probably Black Panther and Ant-Man and the Wasp. And while Captain Marvel wasn't as bad as those, it was still a below average film. Like I said, it wasn't terrible, but I guess with the more recent Marvel movies like Guardians, Infinity War and Captain America, I've come to expect more from the MCU. Captain Marvel really isn't worth your time. Thank you for watching, I really appreciate it. If you've seen the film, make sure you leave a comment because I'd love to know what you thought about it. I'll see you next time.